Hello, welcome to Faery Whispering podcast with me, Claire Casey. And today I've got a guest that I've wanted to have on the show for a while, and he's Craig Whitewood-Khan, and he's a quantum alchemist. So, welcome, Craig. Lovely to have you.
Hi. Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, very much appreciated. And yeah, we've been waiting a little while for this one. So yeah, good.
Yeah, yeah, and I've seen your works.
Good
We've
to
been in
be here.
touch for a
Yeah.
couple of years, haven't we? And even in that time, I've
Mm.
just seen your work develop, and now you've started the quantum jumping group, which I've had a go
Yeah.
at, and I'm going to come back to because it's amazing. I've been seeing people's feedback on that, so we'll talk about that in a moment. First of all, can you just
Fabulous.
introduce you and what you do, and a little bit of your background, so that people can hear about what you do?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh, yeah, no problems. So I started, I think I've probably been at this all my experiences and contact with spirits from a very young age. And 6, 7 years old, I was having out of body experiences at night time. And I lived in a very, what might people might call a haunted house. It was a 700-year-old house. Seen many different lives and different ways of being. It was an old coach house, and then it was an old post office. It used to be a pub, so there are many different things. And as one can imagine, over the years, quite a few people had died on the property, passed
Yeah.
away. So there were a few latent spirits around. My theory is on spirits that if they're unresolved spirits in terms of the way they passed away, or they couldn't let go of the place where they were when they
Right. Yeah.
passed on, and they get stuck.
So
And
were they
the older the
intelligent?
house, the more
Yeah,
yeah.
intelligent
I
so
mean,
that
we
you
had
could
what
interact
you
with
might
them.
recall,
Mm.
what you might call poltergeists. So ones that would move things and stomp across the landing, the upstairs landing. When you're downstairs,
Yeah.
you go dong 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 dong,
Oh, yeah.
like
Yep.
really
Mm.
moving dining room chairs, and yeah, all sorts of fun things like that going on. And which scared the living daylights out of
Mm.
my nan, bless her. She was white as a ghost herself. And quite a few of things, they happened when I was just with my nan, who lived with us when my parents were out. And
Oh, right. That's
it was
interesting, isn't it?
quite sort of
Mm.
costly to heat the place in the winter, with a big double living room. So we'd migrate to the dining room, and just have the little fire on there, and.
Mm.
But, so that would be the main place of activity. And I always remember seeing like a silhouette of a little boy sat in the corner in a chair in the corner, and I would
Oh,
talk to
wow.
him. I'd sit there and say, "Oh, hello," and
Mm.
just casual chit chat. As far as I was concerned, it was just like, "Who are you?" But I
So,
wouldn't get very specific answers. It would just be like a friendly sort of nodding, and like nothing all
oh,
the time.
would you call that um like a childhood invisible friend? I mean, did your family know that you had that connection, or was it
Yeah,
just a,
I would say that it was actually like I told my parents about it, and they were like, "Oh no, we can't see anything," But I don't think they were very tuned in, And I wouldn't say it was an invisible friend. I would say it was definitely a sort of a latent spirit that had
hmm,
sort of left its imprint, its energy there, and could sort of vaguely interact, but nothing in particular,
right?
audibly, wouldn't get a conversation going or anything.
No,
Um,
but it was aware of you though. It was aware.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Mm.
yeah. Tell me about your out of body experiences. I mean, did you go to the earthly realms during those, or did you go to other places in the cosmos
No,
or other
I would go.
dimensions?
I would just shoot straight up into the cosmos, and I would just keep. It was like this sort of hyperspace traveling, just up through the stars and past planets, and just kept going. Just
Wow.
almost had this infinite, endless feeling about it, you know.
Mm.
Like just keep going as far, you know, until I called myself back in again, and I just suddenly boom, back in my body, and
Did
yeah, yeah.
you did you meet any other life forms while you were doing that? Was it just you
No, it was just
meeting?
me. It was
Yeah.
just me. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Wow.
So
I've
yeah, that was interesting.
I've picked the Orion Nebula to go
Yeah,
behind me
you have.
today.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
in
you've
your
done.
honor,
Thank
Craig.
you.
I just thought, oh, something to do with the cosmos. I didn't know you were going to tell me that, so it's quite
There you
interesting.
go.
There you
Yeah,
go.
well tuned in.
Yeah. So those early experiences and being, would you say you're very sensitive, quite psychic naturally? Um,
Yeah, yeah, I think
yeah.
so. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
And
then, yeah, carry on. Mm.
and just over the years, just so I'd saved several lives by the time I was 15, 16, and including my dad's actually. He'd collapsed. So I was
Really?
kind of like a natural healer.
Oh gosh.
I was in the Red Cross very early as well. I'd got all my badges by the time I was like 10. You know, I like, okay, he's done every single badge there is to get.
Wow.
So uh, as far as not excelling at school, I excelled in that sort of thing. So
Mhm. That that's amazing. So it's almost like,
yeah,
did you
yeah,
feel that was part of your purpose here? Do you feel that's been, that those early experiences?
yeah. I think yeah, it's
Yeah,
definitely been directed to me. Yeah, in terms of coming into the healing aspect of things, you know, and yeah, that's definitely been a direction since I was young. And then
yeah.
when I got, wasn't until my 30s I started doing sound healing. And I'd already been doing DJ work before that. So
Mhm.
I'd been DJing at various festivals and what we might call underground raves or parties. And so sound with music. I was brought to music. Both my parents were musicians. I was in a choir when I was church choir, indoctrinated into that. Well, I think I got thrown out for consistently going off key. I think I was just like,
Oh, but
no, he keeps going off key. You can't have, you know,
that didn't put you off though. Have you kept
no, no, no.
singing or yeah,
I did do some the ayahuasca healing songs, the with the Shipibo tribe healing songs with
yeah.
ayahuasca plant. So I did
Hmm.
a bit of a course on that, but I haven't really maintained doing singing.
Mm.
I've mainly just got into frequencies now, which
Yes.
then I did hypnotherapy at the beginning of lockdown in 2019 20. I just
Hmm.
thought, right, I'm going to do a course, something I can offer online. And it was very popular hypnotherapy school up in London,
Mm.
and they're international based. They offer work in Japan, and they were just like, right, get quite, we're going fully online now. Get qualified in 6 months or less, and get going. So I did that, and then with the sound healing and that combined, brought me into then I did some workshops with Jade Shaw on out of body experiences. She's a British based OBE expert,
Right.
and
Yes.
she did She
Hmm.
did her master's degree in altered state, naturally altered states and
Hmm.
out of body experiences. And they did some masterclass work. Jade Shaw and Sean Mind from Brazil, an illusionist and hypnosis expert from Brazil. So I did some work with them, and then they were like, I effectively was probably one of three people on the whole masterclasses with them that had a proper out of body experience with their
Right.
guidance. So
Yeah. Mm.
obviously being a natural at it from such a
Mhm.
young age and having done hypnosis as well, and it was hypnotically guided out of body experiences. So you became, guided into the OBE state, and yeah. So and then Jade messaged me afterwards saying, "Oh, so you're going to start a course then, Craig?"
Yeah.
And then I
Wow.
start. Obviously, I'd relayed my experience quite well and gave them the feedback that she thought that I was perfectly adept at
Mm.
doing the work and also helping some other people do the same. So I thought, right, great. Then I
Mm.
started offering OBE work on one-to-one and groups for a few months, about 3 or 4 months, and then came across the quantum jumping and did that was just an online pre-recorded course, and did that for a few days, and I thought, right, well, this is for me, this is like almost the end game
Yeah. So can you,
where I can finish offering this as a modality, really. So,
yeah, and can you explain to everyone here that probably a lot of people won't know what quantum jumping is? You explain what it is and what happens?
okay, well,
Yeah.
so in quantum physics, we have multiple world theory or the multiverse, which many people might have heard of. And all different versions of us all existing at the same time across different universes that are all running parallel to each other. And there can be infinite versions of us that exist. There's actually 9 multiple or multiverse theories. There's one that it's different levels of consciousness in the mind. I won't go through all of them, but I'll go through a few of them. Then there's the one that exists with choice points. So every time we make a choice, a new version of us splits off and creates another parallel universe that's running at the same time. So we, in essence, leave part of us to
Mm.
exist that didn't make the choice that we did make,
Hmm.
and they run parallel, although they would be latent in terms of they would just exist as potential energy rather than kinetic energy. And
Mm.
then with quantum jumping, we go into a guided meditation, a hypnotic guided meditation, where we can then access these other versions of ourselves that exist at the same time, now only millimeters away, just a frequency switch away from where we are now.
Yeah, and that connects them with my interest primarily in fairies, fairy dimension, and all
Yeah,
these, which is just one of, like you say, many dimensions that we
mm,
can
mm,
access, and what happens when we see
absolutely.
these other beings, whether they're fairies or cryptids or ghosts,
Mm.
that we are in fact interacting with that other dimension,
We're sharing that space. Yeah,
sharing that
yeah, yeah.
space.
We are sharing it. Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and then, so what's your ideas about why that happens? Is it because of our frequency when we encounter these other beings, or are they actually coming in, matching our frequency and coming into our dimension that way? Um,
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I think it's us having that natural free ability to enter into that frequency, and then them coming into our space as well, yeah, and
Yeah.
matching us. So yeah, I think it's a bit of both.
And what I'm interested in as well with your work is what the exciting potential of it, because you're helping through this work, you're helping people, aren't you? So it's not just like just doing something for the sake of it, going on this interesting interdimensional journey. It's about
Bit of a
changing
fun,
people's
yeah,
lives. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah,
Mm,
yeah. Really are working with being able to resolve issues that people have had in the perceived past by developing that true sense of knowing that all time exists
mm,
at the same time. So there really is no past and future, it's all just now. And then we can start to access those parts of us that are it like a soul retrieval type process, so in shamanic terms, what we might call soul retrieval, and power retrieval as well. So getting your power back so you can harness your full self and your full energy so you can then move forward in life with more purpose and live in a more fulfilled way because you're essentially widening your frequency range.
mm.
So where you may have had a narrow frequency band that you're operating on, so you're only taking in this, and this, and you're living in what might be called the arrow of time with a beginning and an end.
Yeah.
You start to perceive everything a lot differently that way. And yeah, we've had a lot of turnarounds. People have gone from being in paid employment, standard jobs, to opening their own businesses.
Wow.
One of our jumpers, her music career has taken off, and her healing work has
Wow.
really gone to the next level. And
Mm,
the altered states that she can go into now to assist her clients is just I read what she's doing now, and I'm just like, wow, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, you weren't saying these things at all, and she pops back on now and again. But yeah,
yes. I must
she,
come
yeah,
along again
yeah,
because I
yeah,
really enjoyed it
please
when I
do.
came.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Um,
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
been doing
yeah,
some
excellent.
psychic development. I've been doing an intuitive art course, um,
Oh, brilliant.
coming to an end soon for the last few weeks. And as part of that,
Oh,
we've been doing
mm,
TYT, traversing your timeline, which is a similar thing where you can go back into your past and go back and visit yourself as a child and
yeah,
change the way that you move forward into your future and things like that. So
mm.
it is really powerful. And the interesting realization I had on one of the sessions a couple of weeks ago was that a spirit that I'd seen as a child was actually me coming to visit me
Right.
as a child,
Mm,
so my older self. So it
mm.
is really powerful work, isn't it? That and and then to be able
Yeah,
to go
fully.
into these other dimensions. I've just started a course with my patrons that was something that came out of lockdown, the pandemic. Sounds like it was a powerful time for you as well as it was for many
Mm.
people. And I started meditating regularly the year before and having these journeys into the fairy dimension, the fairy realm. And then when the pandemic started, and after I got over the initial shock of it, I recorded a series of journeys based on these experiences that I'd had. So,
Mm.
which I'm now releasing to my patrons as a course. So it's all very, yeah, it's all very interesting, isn't it? How these exterior events kind of, if we allow it to move us into a more positive or better space, it can, can't it? If we can go
I
in.
think so. I think it's been very empowering actually for loads of people, who perhaps didn't even have a voice about things before, you know, and they found themselves being able to express even just anger and frustration from a positive way of, okay, so I'm going to allow me to find my own voice and move into my own power now and go forwards in that way, you know, and let alone the aspect of being able to access different dimensions of consciousness where we've gone inwards instead of permanently looking outwards at what's going on in the world, because literally there was nothing going on in the world out there, you know. It was like, okay, the only thing we've got is the news, and most people, I'm sure, were pretty bored of all that stuff fairly early on, you know, the repeats and, you know, and the standard TV. What I did actually find once I really started accessing other dimensions, watching just something like, I don't know, I'd never really watched TV very much before anyway, but when I did, it still had different quality then to when I really started accessing these wider dimensions, and it just became very plastic and very just far less real, you know. And
I know what you mean.
It's just like, oh, but even the news, anything like that, it just became like, oh, there's a real barrier between me and that transmission now, you know, because I've it outwards, you know, and I felt that was a huge shift for me, and I think probably for many people, you know, it became less convincing and more like, okay, so this is news. These are definitely actors, you know. There's definitely acting going on here. You know, but also, so I used to work in events at Glastonbury Festival. I did some management at Glastonbury Festival, and we. So I used to work for the Rabbit Hole stage, which was all Alice in Wonderland themed, and used to crawl through a rabbit to get in there, and then there was a big party, and then there was a piano bar, and then there was a VIP bit, and there was a hot tub, and and everyone was dressed up. All the women were Alice's except for the Queen, of course, and but we had, you know, the whole cast of Alice in Wonderland, and I was the Mad Hatter. I'd actually, the year I worked there, I'd taken over, bless him, the guy who had passed away, and I was honoured to be presented with this hat the year that I and every year they did portraits in like a really old antique picture frame, and brought in a professional photographer for all the crew that were then sort of dressed up as various characters. And so me and this other woman, we were, but she was the woman that presented me with the hat. She was like the guy who previously was the Mad Hatter's best friend, you know, and she honoured me with this hat, you know, and I was just like, okay, so typical me to have the Mad Hatter, you know.
That is amazing, and that's just like that's just an amazing example of how life can take you on these really strange
incredible
journeys.
Because
you're doing something in your everyday life about going down rabbit holes, and now you're doing this quantum jumping.
And the year before 2-3 years before I got into shamanic work, I was also working for another stage. I was managing a stage for this woman called Merlin, and bless her, Ms. Merlin Wonder Woman super hula hooper, and she was a bit too scatty to run her own stage, and she was like, Craig, I need you to run my stage for me whilst I go and be crazy and scatty and get dressed up and do mad things. So and I ended up dressing up as a witch doctor shaman, you know, so that was my character for and our stage was called Last Aid, not instead of First Aid. So, but most people, whatever they were wearing, had to wear like a medical doctor's white gown or blazer thing with the Last Aid logo on it.
Yeah.
And it was the most crazy. You know, we had a 6'7" clown
Yeah.
who had a bald head, but he had screwed in implants into his head. These little screwed in like implant, and he could put like LED signs on his head that
Really?
lit up
What? Into his
with
actual.
different, yeah, because he just had these little implants screwed in. You know, some people go very, very far for their art, you know,
Wow.
and he
Into his
he was called
skull.
Bing Bing the
Wow.
Clown. His name was, and he would get dressed up as a clown horror surgeon.
Oh,
So he would have all the makeup done, you know, and he was this horror
yeah.
surgeon. But he
Wow.
was 6'7", and his wife was like 5'1". Okay, and she would dress up as a horror clown nurse, you know, so she would be his assistant.
Uh,
And he had these big machetes with blood, you know, plastic machetes with blood on them, you know, and he'd just be walking. And bless these,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
festival wipeout people. They'd be on the floor and they would do a walkout, you know, walkabout.
Yeah.
And then he would get on stilts as well. So
Oh
you
my
can
God.
imagine how massive he was, you know.
Yes.
So, and you know, someone would be waking up. They'd been, you know, up all night. You know, this huge 12-foot long thing stood over them with a scaring the living daylights out of them. You know, but
Oh,
yeah, we had
fabulous.
such huge fun. But for
Yeah.
me to then go, because I did some shamanic sort of initiation work a few years after that. So for me to be dressed as a shamanic type
Yeah.
witch doctor, and then for me to be practicing it seriously as an actual,
Yeah.
you know, medicine practice later on, it's quite interesting to.
That is, yeah, it's fascinating.
So
Art
I
and
think,
life. Yeah.
like I say, I think I've been quantum jumping all my life. You know, just
Mm. Yeah, it is amazing how we discover these things, isn't it? And you suddenly realize, oh, that's something I've already been doing for a long time, but now I've just been sort of realized and now able to put it, I don't know, frame it in some way or
yeah,
wake
into
up to the,
context of
yeah,
how you're going to move forward with
how,
your own life and what you
yeah,
can sort of stabilize those things as well. You know, and
mm,
okay, all right, yeah, yeah, okay, that works. That all fits together. So
yeah. Why does it take us so long?
yeah, like 45
I
now,
know.
and
I know.
yeah, it's taken a little while. You know.
Yeah,
But perhaps things of such magnitude take that amount of time
yeah.
to
I think it's
get
the
come
learning,
to
isn't it?
fruition
The
and
wisdom.
manifest. Yeah,
Yeah, perhaps if we were doing these things when we were like 18, it wouldn't have formulated had time to formulate everything that we need.
yeah, lots of
Maybe.
distractions, lots of distractions. You know, I had a fairly traumatized upbringing, so
Oh,
I think that didn't really help. You know, you wasn't able to stabilize, and then lots of the programming of, well, you're going to be a doctor or you're going to be a
mm,
lawyer, and you know, sort of all of that stuff we've got to kind of get through as well. You know, and, but
yeah.
I think youngsters now have got so much more opportunity with the social media to
Mm,
almost just completely invent themselves and how they want to be and how they want to present to the world, because
yes.
the programming's falling away now. You
Mm,
know, there's less opportunity for that to be a serious thing. You know, and I
mm,
see a lot of these youngsters who are on, you know, 17-year-olds going around like blessing up young girls that they think are beautiful with, here's
mm.
$20,000 to go and spend in this shopping mall here.
Really?
I think you're really hot. Here's $20,000, and they're doing it
Yeah.
just for their social media, you know. So it's like
Gosh.
just like they've developed this personality. They can make money. There's more opportunity to make money outside of a standard career. Kids
Yes.
monetize their social media in different ways, and people may go, oh, well, that's just like, oh, really? Well, greedy or whatever. Or it's all, you're just thinking about material gain and all this stuff. But actually, they're just having fun and playing with
Mm,
reality. Actually,
mm.
I just think actually they're fully entitled to do that as much as
Yes.
adults are to. In fact, they're more entitled to do that than adults are to put their conditioning on those
Mm,
children, because they are
mm,
children. Right? Let's face it. To
mm.
tell them what they should be doing with their life, and
Yeah.
perhaps you shouldn't do that, or no, that's not morally acceptable to go up to a young woman. But actually, they're really enjoying what they're
Mm,
doing.
mm.
You can see that.
Yeah, I didn't know about
Okay,
all
yeah,
of this. It's, yeah, fascinating.
mm,
I've got two
yeah. I try and
16,
keep them broad, sort of looking.
I've got two 16-year-olds
Yeah,
going through the last like the year 11 GCSEs and all of, and yeah, it's a bit of a conveyor belt. It is a bit, that the traditional school system. And I've said before on
mm,
the podcast how when lockdown first started and the schools were like working out what they were going to do, there was a couple of
mm,
months where me and my kids suddenly got back to creativity. They got back to doing more creative things, thinking creatively. We were going for walks in
mm,
nature together nearly every day, and um, yeah, it's almost like it was an insight to a different reality. The reality outside of the school structure, and I think it's another friend of
yeah,
mine saying that
yeah, absolutely.
a lot of young people didn't go back to school, that
Yeah, yeah.
parents
A lot of home
perhaps,
education, home
yeah,
ed took off big time.
yeah,
So my daughter she's only 8, and she's never been to school, and she's never had a vaccine. She's never even seen a doctor. She was home birth, free birth, not even with a midwife. It was
yeah,
2 a.m. in a birth pool in the back garden. In the middle of the summer.
mm,
Actually, on the Lions Gate, and we were talking about that a bit earlier. And so she came through of her own choosing, and yeah, she homeschools, and she's just fully creative in her own mind, and she's
mm.
able to express
Oh,
herself how she wants to, and there's no
fabulous.
limits on that. And
Mm,
of course, she's going morally completely the wrong way, But yeah, she's done really well in with the homeschooling and thriving on that freedom, But
mm,
I'm on the Isle of Wight, so there a lot of people have come here for homeschooling. So
yes.
yeah, so this big homeschooling scene. People have specifically moved here for that, and yeah, I fully sponsor it. Cool.
Definitely, definitely. Gosh, it's the next generation, isn't it, that are going to take over from us, and we want it to be in
Yeah.
good hands. It sounds like your
Well,
daughter's on the
exactly.
right
Yeah, yeah.
track.
Please do.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Mm,
And she's got an older brother, and he's not been to school either. He's 14, so
mm,
yeah, it's a half brother, and yeah, he's he's a musician. He wasn't really musical, but then he tuned into sound healing, and then he was,
mm.
because I'd got into sound. He was showing me videos of incredible singing bowl arrays and things like that. And he was like, "Yeah,
Wow.
I want to get into that." But now he's got into his guitar, so he's playing
Mm,
his guitar now, and yeah, I think he'll do well.
brilliant.
Long blonde hair,
Oh, great.
handsome boy, got his
Yeah,
guitar. Yeah, he's going to be a
fabulous.
classic. But it's almost a Kurt Cobain alike. you know.
And coming back to the Isle of Wight and your connect, because I want to talk about, there's a couple of things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about your connection with nature and a fairy experience you had, because you're very much connected to, from what I understand, the history, or your family's been on the Isle of Wight for a long time, and you had some land, and there's an an experience
Yeah, I
you
did have
had
that
that,
a few years ago.
yeah, could you share that experience and how you feel this connection with nature and the landscape?
It's just that. So yeah, I mean, our family have been on the island probably certain parts of them since before the Romans, you know, and they we were fairly late in having a Roman takeover here anyway, and the piece of land I had was actually part of what used to be my family's farmland many generations ago, and then it got sold on, and I ended up having a piece of what was thousands of acres of farmland that's now commercial grains that they grow up there, much to my disliking. But yeah, so yeah, I had that. We had some ancient woodland there, mainly hawthorn, and yeah, it was mainly sort of old hawthorn and blackthorn, which can't get through blackthorn, of course. And sort of ancient hedgerow. And yeah, I was just sat up there in my car for a while and having a coffee. It got dark, and there were some sort of spirit came up and just tapped on the back of the car and just knocked on the window, and then hurried round the side of the car, and then in front of the blackthorn bushes between where me in the front of the car, the car and the hedgerow was, it just ran between us, and then I sort of scanned round and sort of watched it go back, and then watched it run into the woodland, into the forest. And yeah, very interesting. And it was just a black, shadowy being, entity, and certainly fairy-esque as far as I was concerned.
What sort of shape
Some
was
sort of
it? I mean,
forest fairy activity.
what can you tell?
It looked like a human, not as tall as like me, probably just over 5 foot, and a very sort of long, pointy head. It
Wow.
was almost like it was sort of trailing some sort of headdress type thing, but it was black and shadowy, so you couldn't really define what that was. But it looked like a bit a long, sort of pointy head, and limbs that were long and pointy, like flowing. And
Right.
it was just like, yeah, so like not very like our hands are solid, and but just sort of pointy and flowing and just running like this. And yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That sounds like I'm just going to let my cat out because she's meowing at me. Just sorry.
Okay, you go ahead. Yeah.
Distracted. um,
Better.
yeah. Sounds like it could be, you buy the blackthorn and the hawthorn, which are both connected with fairies, aren't they?
Yes,
And the fact
exactly.
it was spiky, I wonder if it was some kind of spirit connected with the trees, with the.
Yeah. I think it was, you know, because it was very much like the blackthorn and the hawthorn had
Mm,
those long limbs that were, well, thin
Mm.
limbs that were sort of a bit spiky almost at the end, and the head as well. So yeah, it's
Did you
definitely linked with those particular trees. Yeah.
did it have 5 fingers, have you noticed, or was it
Didn't really, no, it
no?
wasn't getting that much of a clear visual because it was pretty dark by then as
Mm,
well. So
mm,
it was only lit by the moon.
yeah. So I wonder if it was, do you think it was checking you out? Just sort of having a look at what you were doing there, or
Yeah, I think
mm,
so. Maybe having a bit of fun with me because yeah, I've been up there for what 2.5 years,
mm,
so I'm sure they were familiar. Whatever spirits were up there were familiar with me.
yeah.
So perhaps it was just a bit of fun with me by tapping on the back of the car window,
Yeah, that's interesting that it actually had that physical element to it, that it could
mm,
tap. So it
mm.
must have been fairly solid, would you say? Or
Quite a powerful, yeah, energy. It's yeah,
mm,
certainly manifesting quite powerfully in this dimension.
wow. And did you have any other experiences with it, or was that it? Was
No, that
yeah.
was it with that particular one.
Mm,
Um, but later on, the land got taken over by someone else, and like we were discussing before, I don't believe
mm,
they were particularly pleasant people who bought it. And
mm,
I went back up there, and I had my staff with me, my handcraft staff, which I
right.
um, carved out of one of the fallen branches that had sort of been cured and found under some hedgerow.
Hmm.
So it was absolutely rock solid. And I went back up over the field, and it was just a really heavy mist over the whole cliff top, because right on the edge of the cliff, actually,
Mm,
so the cliff path separating it
hmm.
from the edge, and then sort of, you can imagine there's cliff path, and then blackthorn on your right hand side, and then beyond that, the land just past it.
Hmm.
And I went on, and there was just some sort of giant roar came through, like it was just like, and it
Really?
wasn't windy or anything. It was just
Mm,
like, right, this rumbling roar came through, and I
wow.
just thought, wow, some sort of entity is here
Yeah.
that's not that doesn't want me here now.
Mm,
And I'd actually been fighting to keep hold of the land for quite some time, and
mm,
I thought some sort of spell work had been done there. I don't know, to leave an entity there, and
mm,
I actually had to cast it out, and I had to use my staff to do that as well. So I was just like, well, no, and I had to sort of whip up some energy
yeah.
around me to protect
Gosh.
me, and I was just like, well, I'm not having that business here, and
No.
sort of,
Oh,
yeah,
I wonder what.
had a little some sort of battle.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I wonder, that's interesting when we go to places that have had these entities brought through, isn't it? I've experienced that.
Mm,
And it's almost like you say, it's people that come with that intent to bring this energy through for their
mm.
particular
They get,
purposes.
yeah, they're
Whatever their
games, like
purposes.
the games are, yeah,
Yeah. And I wonder, you sort of think about the other beings in that place, how they, you know, would take to that. It's kind of, um,
yeah. It's like an invasion on their space,
yeah,
isn't
invasion
it?
on
Yeah,
their
yeah.
space. So it sounds like so you've not been back there then since then, or
Not since then. No,
no?
that was the last time I went up there, and I thought, but the so I went and actually physically tried to take it back because
Mm,
they'd left the gate open, and I thought,
mm,
right, well, I'll take it back, then I'll fight it in the court, and I'll go
yeah.
back, and I was this close,
Mm,
and he knew I'd gone back up there and had to kind of go. he literally had to go to court as well with me and all this blah blah blah,
Mm.
and all that nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they went and put like a huge lump of concrete at the bottom of the ramp, so I couldn't drive up there anymore, and
Gosh.
put cast iron reinforcement bars into the concrete.
Gosh.
So even though I had a friend come and look at it, and he said, "Oh, I'll get that up with a forklift in no time. You
Mm.
know, we'll
Mm.
get." He could have dealt with it for me, you know, quite
Mm.
easily.
Mm.
But I know a couple of the farmer types around there, you know, and they would have quite happily moved that. Had we not been breaking the law, but
Mm.
then we would have probably been breaking the law at
Yeah.
that point. So
Yeah.
I think it was just like, no, let's just leave that now.
I
It's
know. These
on
things,
go, you know, there's
yeah.
better things to do with one's life than battle
Yeah.
these malevolent type
Yeah.
energies, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, what I do with places that just thinking, I'm sure that's happened to me. There's been places that I can no longer get to that have been privatized in some way or changed ownership, and then that access goes, and you can still work with
Yeah,
them
happens all the
energetically,
time.
can't you? And
Mm,
travel into them astrally and work with them and the beings there. So
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I called in the ancestors a number
Mm,
of times up there anyway, and just said, "Look, bless this land and
mm,
protect it as much as possible." And you know,
mm,
I don't think he's actually doing anything with it, which means, as far as I'm concerned, it's left to its natural
mm,
devices. And
mm.
yeah,
Wonderful. So I want to talk about your Egyptian um, plans that you have, because they
yeah,
sound,
yeah.
sorry, I'm just going to pick this up. They sound really amazing.
So we're starting a quantum out. Me and an osteopath, Trevor, who comes on quantum jumping with me,
Mm,
and he's a sort of semi co-host, I suppose, with what we're doing there, and he's definitely a regular and a supporter of the work. So he does intuitive osteopathy.
mm,
We're going to do a quantum alchemy course, so hopefully launch that by April Fool's Day, and
mm. Amazing.
get that out. And then as an extension to that, we're going to offer some retreats. Actually, one coming up for the Lake District as well,
Mhm.
and in Egypt. So
Yeah.
and
Wow.
that and Egypt for the Lion's Gate on the 8th of the 8th.
Mhm.
So and what another quantum jumper who comes on. She's introduced me to her mum, who has a tour operating company in Egypt, and she's into quantum jumping as well. So we're going to do some quantum jumping on the Lion's Gate. That'll be
Amazing.
a 10-day retreat tour
Mhm.
excursion, whatever you want to call it. And although they'll run independently, the Lake District and Egypt will tag them on to the end of the course as well. So hopefully
Mhm.
the course will be finishing in time for people to book on. So we can have people coming in from various directions. So
Fabulous. And of
it'll be
course, Egypt
brilliant.
has, sorry, Craig. Yeah,
No, no, go on.
I was going to say Egypt has these places that are believed to be stargates as well. So are you going to be going to some of those places? I think there's
Yes, we
Elephantine
are. Yeah.
Island. I've heard about.
Oh,
That's
right.
good.
No, I haven't got.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm,
Okay. I'll choose that with Ramona, who's
mm,
co-hosting the Egypt tours. Yeah. So yeah, I'll ask her about that. Sekhmet is an interdimensional sort of goddess being
yeah.
who's a cat,
Mhm. Oh gosh.
into by a large
Yeah.
black cat. And
Yeah.
she was supposed to be the warrior queen, you know, a bit like Shakti,
Mm,
but actually represents really the transition between dimensions of thought and
right.
being. from anger, but into transitioning into being a more loving entity. And so she went from being bloody, slash and burn everything and everyone, to actually being an interdimensional portal, which I watched some videos recently of some explorers that go to Egypt regularly and to Egyptian mythology, and they went to cameras on their phones, and they were all getting like goosebumps and things like that. So, and they've actually got a Lion's Gate, which is to the city of Luxor, and so that in Egyptian mythology, they used the Lion's Gate as a portal for change and manifestation. So we're going to hold a quantum jump on the 8th of the 8th at the Lion's Gate, and we're going to do that. And we're going to do some desert dreaming in the black and white desert as well. So we're going to have some lucid dreaming out in Bedouin tents out there. And
sounds awesome. Yeah, sounds totally awesome. And
great.
I had some recognition when you were talking about Sekhmet, because she's come through for me in the past. I've drawn her, I've painted her, and didn't know that that's what, that extra piece of information that you've given me about her being a portal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that makes sense, because I also have another guest that I've just spoken to again called Lorraine Wilson, and she takes these amazing interdimensional photographs of light in her garden, and she's captured the face of a cat, like a humanoid cat being that she said is her guide.
Right.
And it's so clear. It's like, this being looking out of the light.
Sekhmet.
Sekhmet. And she's working with light frequency. So, and she's been learning about that.
Awesome.
Yeah. I will tell her about your quantum jumping, because I think she'd be really interested in it. I'm sure everyone here that's listening as well. So could you tell everyone where they can connect with you, Craig, and come on your quantum jumps and everything else that you're doing?
Mostly I'm just on Facebook at the moment. So just Craig Whitewood-Khan, and you can message me there or friend request me if they're friends with you already. And then I send out invitations through Facebook group, or we've also got Craig Whitewood-Khan, the Dream Temple,
right? Yes.
On Telegram, and the group on there is called Infinite Mind. Is it the Infinite Mind or Infinite Minds? I can't remember on that one.
Infinite Mind. Yeah.
I need to align them because.
Yeah, I can put all of the links.
But if you could put the Telegram group link in there, that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the Infinite Minds, that one. So with the Telegram. And it's got a picture of me looking a little bit out of this world. In the quantum doorway and the quantum hall. Yeah.
I look forward to quantum jumping with you again and following what else you're up to. It all sounds so exciting.
We've got lots going on this year.
So, brilliant.
It's all it's been started the quantum jumping in June last year, so all times now. So it's happening now.
Excellent. Okay, thank you for your time, Craig. And it's been wonderful talking to you.
It's been great. Yeah. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
See you again soon. Okay.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.